Welcome into the Fantasy Rant podcast. I'm your host, Mason Beck. We're here with Dan Baker and Lee Cook as my co hosts. Welcome in. Today, we're going to be going over some consensus rankings between sleeper drafts and then Keep Trade Cut, which is a common use tool for trades and just consensus rankings in general. 3 rookies from last year that we think that their placement and general consensus might be a little off right now. But before we go into that, how are you guys doing?
Pretty good. Came back from a trip to Cleveland, watched the Guardians win. That was pretty fun. Don't always get to watch them win, so we'll take it when we can.
Incredible. We're in the not quite the short rows, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Get through the NBA, NHL finals, College World Series, and home free home. You know, we're football will be here.
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's just jump right into it real quick. The first player we're going to be going over is Marvin Harrison Jr. Last year, obviously, came to the season as a top 5 rookie overall pick. Was going pretty early in startup drafts too, I believe, going in the early second or sometimes even in the late first. Kind of a disappointing year, rookie season. But right now, he's currently on Keep Trade Cut, going 24th overall. Surrounded by players like Trey McBride, Nico Collins, CJ Stroud, and Lad McConkey. And on Sleeper, he's going around 29th overall. His surrounding players are CJ Stroud, McConkey, Devon Achane, and Bucky Irving. This is in a super flex format. What, in your guys' opinion, are either of those 2 wrong? I mean, obviously, they're 5 picks off from each other, but do we think this is kind of an accurate thing or an overvalue, undervalue? Where are we kind of sitting at? Because I know there's a lot of confusion, and Marvin Harrison Jr. is kind of typically on the trade block in a lot of leagues, it seems like.
Lee, did you want to start off?
I'm trading for him if he's on the block. I mean, I think it's about right where he should be, but if people are ready to jump off the ship, sign me up. You know, he's still tied to Kyler. Obviously, I mean, it was disappointing from the expectations, but 885 yards, 8 touchdowns as a rookie. Some of the disappointment comes with, BTJ, Neighbors, Ladd. You know, you're in that rookie class where all 3 of those guys exceed expectations. We've seen, a couple of years ago what Puka did as a rookie. So, the bar has been raised, but the talent is still there. This dude was raised and really he was taught to be a wide receiver from a very young age. I think they'll figure it out. I think he still has the potential to be the wide receiver 1 from last year's class, which I think a lot of people have bailed on already.
Yeah, I think that Marvin Harrison Jr. had a fine rookie season, and that just devastated so many because of the insane expectations that people had. He was the highest drafted rookie wide receiver in redraft ever. Neighbors was actually the second highest ever last season. So really the pedigree just catapulted them in terms of what people expected from him. But one of the reasons why I do think he is overvalued is because of the Cardinals' lack of targets to the wide receiver position. Last year, they targeted the wide receiver position 250 times. That was 4th least. And it's not like just happenstance. The year before that, they were also 5th in the NFL 6th in the NFL in targets to the wide receiver position. So 250 targets to the wide receiver position. The median in the NFL was 316. let's say, I'm sorry, 315. So Marvin Harrison Jr. got 46% of the Cardinals wide receivers targets last season. If he gets 46% of that 65, just get him back to the median. That would have ended up based on his catch percentage, yards per target or yards per reception, and touchdowns per target. You would have ended up with another 42.9 points in half PPR formats. That would have jumped him up to wide receiver 9 compared to wide receiver 29 where he had finished. So if the Cardinals start throwing the ball to wide receiver position more frequently, and Marvin Harrison Jr. stays in the same realm, in the same position in this offense, I could absolutely see him taking off. But it doesn't seem like the Cardinals it's not their MO.
Yeah, I mean, as long as Kyler's been there, there's never really been a strong wide receiver presence. I mean, obviously not talent wise, but I'm just saying target share necessarily. It's hard to really trust that. I mean, the talent is definitely there for Marvin Harrison Jr. I'd be more leaning towards like sleepers consensus of 29th overall instead of keep trade cut where they have him at currently 24. There's guys around him on the sleeper even that are going like Lad McConkey, Bucky Irving. I would take both of those guys over Marvin Harrison Jr. no matter what. Uh, that's just my personal preference. They've already shown that the NFL production is there. Marvin Harrison Jr., the talent is there, just the production might not come for a little bit longer.
So you're saying you would take Bucky and Ladd in Dynasty or just for the season?
Dynasty.
No, I would make that trade with
You're,
you any day of the week.
yeah, 100%.
I mean, we know how running backs flame out. I know you love Bucky. We've discussed that quite a bit, but a running back with that draft capital, it's just Marvin Harrison's 22 years old. I want to point out, you guys know I'm the resident senior citizen here. 2011. So we're going in the time machine. In 2011, there were two very highly touted wide receivers that were drafted in the top 6, AJ Green and Julio Jones. And now I know players getting extra year in college. Marvin didn't have that. He was 22. He didn't play 5 years. But players getting an extra year in college, the evolution of college offense, I know things have changed. But going back to 2011, AJ Green had just a tick over 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. Julio Jones had 950 yards and 8 touchdowns. Both numbers very comparable on about the same amount of receptions in that 65 to 68 range. Very comparable to the rookie season Marvin Harrison had. Those guys didn't have that outlier to compare to. They both turned out pretty damn good. So I'm not saying he's going to be Julio Jones, but I think, honestly, and maybe I'm crazy, I think AJ Green is the floor for Marvin Harrison over the next 5 years.
Don't see a world where he fails. Like he's got to start delivering on wide receiver 2 or better. I'd say for the next better part of a decade.
Yeah. AJ Green is not a name I've thought of in a while. Just wanted to throw that in there real quick.
You're welcome.
You old man. But to move on to the
thing.
sure,
really quick, the last thing I wanted to throw in before we move on is just where he could improve is his consistency. He had 8 finishes at wide receiver 4 or worse, and only 2 in wide receiver 1 range. So if he could just raise the floor in those games a little bit more, I think that would go a long way.
Agreed.
All right, to move on to the second one, we're going to go Caleb Williams, 101 pick in NFL last year. And even in some leagues, he was going 101 in Superflex. Kind of disappointing rookie season as well. Didn't live up to the expectations of other quarterbacks in this class. He's going around 22nd overall in sleeper, with surrounding players being Nico Collins, Justin Herbert, Drake May, Drake London. And on keep trade cut, only one spot better at 21st overall. Surrounding players are Nico Collins, Herbert, McBride, and London. Are you guys? I mean, obviously, Bears when brought in a new coach, kind of really changed up everything. Keenan Allen's gone now. That is something that factor in. Luther Burden's brought in. Odunze's kind of set up for year 2. A lot of classic Bears being the off-season winners they are. Are we buying into that hype this year? Do we think that's the right kind of placement, 21, 22 overall in a super flex startup, or are you just sticking away from him?
Personally think this is the perfect spot for him. He didn't have as impressive of a rookie year as some thought, but right now, Sandwich, he's definitely has more value than CJ Stroud, more legs, tons of weapons around him, and a great head coach. And then Justin Herbert is ahead of him. He's proven. I would probably slip Caleb Williams ahead of Justin Herbert, um, and probably Drake May. Drake May, I know he's got the rushing upside, and everyone loves that, but it's just the wide receiver core is unreal for Caleb right now, and if he can just do anything with that, not take stupid sacks, not run himself into pressure, I think that the sky's the limit.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Caleb was just a little risky. I feel like his decision making was very, very bad in certain games. Obviously, like there's certain games he completely blew at the end due to bad game management, um, and that's something to factor in his real long term thing. So it's kind of a risk right there. But I mean, if he does kind of bounce back year two under a new coaching system, obviously a lot better than it should be, a lot better than it was last year. Um, Maybe he could be a top 12 overall pick in a startup, but I just think it's way too risky, and I'd rather go with Herbert, who's shown he's going to be a long-term quarterback, or Drake May, who has the rushing upside and showed a lot more promise to me last year.
Yeah, so I am going to agree with Mason here, and I'm out. I'm out. I'm out. I'm out. I'm tired of hearing about this is the year for the Bears. They win the offseason every year for at least this is the third offseason in a row. It doesn't happen. Ben Johnson is not a miracle worker. It's going to be better, but unless he's coming in and waving a magic wand, there's no way on this earth I'm taking Caleb Williams over Drake May. I'm a Carolina guy. We know my love for Jaden Daniels, but I got a lot of love for Drake May as well. I think he's a better player. I think he's a better football player. I think he's a better fantasy football player. Caleb was buoyed a little bit. I think he had 470 yards rushing last year. Some of that was just the improv, how bad the offense was. He had to do more. I could see this going real bad real quick. He's walked back the whole interview, the book that came out. He didn't want to be in Chicago, wanted to be in Minnesota, blah, blah, blah. But that's a town that's so quarterback starved, especially when you see Jaden Daniels doing what he's doing. Potentially, Bo Nix doing what he's doing. Who knows what Penix and May are going to do, what J.J. McCarthy's going to do. This town is going to turn on him so fast after a couple of bad games. It's going to get real ugly real quick.
So, all right, let's say the skills position. Like, where are you guys ranking that grouping in terms of the NFL? Like wide receivers, tight ends, running backs as a whole.
I mean,
obviously kind of hard to group it all together, but
DJ
I'd say
Moore's
they're
the
the
only
deepest
one.
of any team.
DJ Moore's the only one on the Bears offense who really shows that to me, though, that like you can prove to me. DeAndre Swift's a okay running back. He has his moments, but we got a Dunze who did not show anything very promising his rookie year. We got Luther Burden, who they brought in, who, rookie, don't know. They brought in Loveland, tight end. Sometimes it takes tight ends a lot longer to get more acclaim to the NFL. It's also a rookie, so you never know. I mean, we think that the Bears should be good just based off of what they spent their draft capital on. That a lot of their offensive playmakers are high draft capital guys, but that doesn't mean that they're good. It's just we expect them to be good.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's to be determined. Again, not to agree with this guy, but DJ Moore is the only proven weapon. I believe in Rome. I mean, I stated it last year. I think he's going to have a good season. But I mean,
great
Cole
compliment
Kmet,
to DJ Moore too. Like
potentially.
Rome Odunze is the big-bodied outside guy. I think he was NFL ready last year. He was just kind of buried behind Keenan and DJ Moore, and they didn't seem to run a ton of 3 wide receiver sets. Ironically, for bringing in all those guys.
I think Colson Loveland was a terrible pick.
Yeah, I didn't understand it, but I think it's great for Caleb.
I think a cornerstone left tackle would have been better.
It would have helped him not
mean,
dance around so much for sure.
Yeah.
But now when you got like 2 solid tight ends, 3, maybe 4 solid wide receivers in Chicago, a couple of pass catching backs, like I don't know, he could turn anywhere, chuck it up, and probably do well.
Starts with O-line. And I mean, I know they brought in Joe Thuney, but and I know that's been supposedly they invest. I think they may have invested in some other spots, but the O-line was a big problem. And to me, again, old man, I played line, as you can tell from looking at me, inside out. You know, you got to build inside out, and they're not doing that. And it just very, very rarely works in the NFL. You can have all the skill positions in the world, as evidenced by what Kansas City, you know, what Philly did to Kansas City. Philadelphia has built, as bad as it pains me to say, they've built from the inside out, O-line and D-line. And I think that's where it starts. Loveland could be great. I don't think he's Brock Bowers this year. Maybe he's next year. You know, he becomes that second-year breakout. You know, there's a lot of injuries going into this season. But they just paid Cole Kmet not that long ago. He's a solid tight end. It's just the O-line – I think Ryan Poles is getting fired. I think Ben Johnson will pick his next GM next year.
Okay.
All right. That's going to do it for Caleb. We'll move on to our
Remember
third.
They brought some people in free agent. Jonah
You broke up. Say that again.
Delayed. I was just saying they brought in Jonah Jackson from the Rams. Drew Dalman, don't honestly know a ton about him, but he's a center from Atlanta, and then Joe Toon. So at least getting back toward average with the offensive line, but third pieces, we'll see how long it lasts.
You're kind of cutting in and out
again.
right there.
All right, well, on to the next then.
For the last player, we're going to be talking about Malik Neighbors. Obviously, a very impressive rookie season. But overall in Sleeper right now, he's going 11th overall. Around him are players like Bowers, Gibbs, CeeDee Lamb, Mahomes. On trade cut, which to me was really insane, he's going 6th overall. Around players like Lamar, Justin Jefferson, Bijan, and Joe Burrow. Obviously, very impressive rookie season. You couldn't really ask for a ton more out of a guy, especially in a very poor quarterback system. But 6th overall on Keep Trade Cut. I mean, I know that their kind of algorithm is a little weird, but even that, or 11th overall, which 11th seems a little more right to me. I think there's still a couple players after him that I take before 11, before I take Neighbors, but like 6 overall, do you guys agree with that, or is that just way too high?
It feels a little high.
There you go. No, I was going to let you go for it.
Yeah, I mean, 6 feels a little high for me. And on the Keep Trade Cut, so it is that's a super flex ranking. So they have him as wide receiver 3, with Jamar and Justin Jefferson being the only skill positions in front. Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan right behind. That's 6 spots in front of CeeDee Lamb, 8 spots in front of Brian Thomas. And I think there's a real debate about who you would rather have, Brian Thomas or Malik Neighbors. Both have incredible outlooks for Dynasty. But at that cost, give me Brian Thomas and give me a first-round pick, and Brian Thomas is my second-round pick any day of the week. Who knows, man? I mean, I don't think Jackson Dart's that guy. Maybe he is. I do think it's not going to be worse. Russell Wilson has shown that, he can, even at this stage in his career, can support, some wide receiver production. But the defense should be better. The running back situation should be better. What I really want to see is I want to see at least 4 games of Jameis Winston just throwing the ball up to Malik Neighbors.
To say that, I was hoping you were going to bring it up. That's who he needs. If we want to see Neighbors become a star, we need Jameis. Give me Jameis or give me death.
170 targets is what he had last year.
How many of them were catchable, I wonder?
I mean, he caught 109. I don't know how many of the other ones, how many he caught that were uncatchable, or how many he didn't catch that just he didn't have a chance at.
Right. I'm gonna see if I can find it here.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah,
It's hard for me to take a wide receiver that just really might be in quarterback hell for who knows how long. I mean, like looking at just keep trade cut right now, Amon Ra is going 15th overall. 9 spots behind Neighbors. I mean, I'm a big Amon Ra fan, but like 9 spots above him is pretty crazy. I mean, Puka, like you said, Brian Thomas Jr. I mean, these are all guys that, in my opinion, are definitely in the same level, and to be or even better, and to just be taking Neighbors that far ahead of them is it's crazy to me to think.
I mean, a lot of people don't. You think when we look back at last year, we think, well, Neighbors did all this with no quarterback play. Brian Thomas had Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence didn't play great, and then he was out for the second half of the season. A lot of Brian Thomas's production was with Mac Jones throwing him the ball. So with a healthy Trevor Lawrence for the year, I'm certainly taking Brian Thomas, but I would have a real internal debate about who I would prefer long term.
I found it. It says 124 of his 170 targets were catchable. To give you a little bit of context, the next closest person to targets, Jamar Chase, 175 targets on the season. 144 of them were catchable. It's only 5 more targets, but 20 more catchable balls over that span. I don't know if it gets that much better with Jackson Dart, but I do think that Malik Neighbors is just slightly overvalued, being at 6th overall. That's too rich for my blood. I definitely go with at least me philosophy. I'm going with the quarterbacks early. So like I'll take Jalen Hurts, who's ranked 11th. Let's see here. Well, I guess that kind of ends it. We got Joe Burrow as well, right behind him at 7. So Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts, I'm taking over Malik Neighbors. I'd go with the 2 RBs, Gibbs and Robinson, over him as well. And I agree with you. I'm taking Brian Thomas Jr. if we know that Trevor Lawrence is healthy. And he's never really had an issue with injuries for last year.
Yeah, I would only see in the tight end premium league even already taking Bowers before Neighbors. I mean, that might be a little too much, but I think they are honestly probably at the exact same range of players.
I got a question for you guys. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's something I was thinking about just looking at this. So you can flip flop. You can have one of these 2 combinations. You can have Bowers and it doesn't have to be tight end premium. Say it's regular scoring. You can have Bowers and Brian Thomas, or you can have Malik Neighbors and Trey McBride.
I'm gonna go Neighbors and Trey McBride. It's just the targets. I know Brock Bowers is getting peppered with targets, but they got to add a wide receiver eventually. Right now, we're seeing Trey McBride demand the targets, even with a stud like Marvin Harrison Jr. being drafted first year. There's no Marvin Harrison Jr. in Las Vegas, and if there was, I'm sure he wouldn't be quite as heavily targeted as he was.
Well, that sounded like an argument for Bowers, not McBride.
I said, no. I said that McBride demands the targets even with Marvin Harrison Jr. there. And eventually the Raiders are going to add a wide receiver. Like, I like Beck, but they're going to add an alpha 1, and it's going to take away from Bowers eventually.
But that's to say that Marvin Harrison's progression isn't going to take away from McBride? Because you're talking hypothetical, what the Raiders are going down in the future. The Cardinals have that guy, and we're all pretty high on his future.
Right, but McBride's already doing it with that guy there, whereas Bowers doesn't have that competition. So if they do add that guy, now there's a whole added alpha that McBride's already existing with and dominating with. Does that not make sense to y'all?
That makes sense to me.
I just think you're talking a hypothetical, whereas Marvin Harrison, we all believe he can be the dominant one in the league, like a wide receiver one, right? We just talked about it 2 segments ago.
But we've seen Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce dominate for years. There can be a top one and a top tight end. But right now, McBride's already doing that with the guy that we think is going to be that guy. So Browers doesn't have that in Jacoby Myers, or I don't think Beck is going to be that guy. So when they do, I think it's an inevitability that next year they're going to bring in a wide receiver. Myers is on the last year of his deal, and they got nobody behind him except Trey Tucker. So they got to bring in somebody.
So this hypothetical guy they bring in a year from now, you think is going to command more targets than year 3 Marvin Harrison?
I'm saying that right now, Trey McBride is already proving he's doing it with the alpha, and they're probably not going to bring in another alpha. Maybe they bring in a wide receiver too in Arizona. Neighbors is an absolute stud. He eventually should get another quarterback. Right now, these are all hypotheticals, but I'm going with what I believe is going to be the higher target volume between the two.
Okay. I mean, I hear you. I disagree vehemently, but I hear you. And then also, just to add, Bowers did that with Minshew and Pornstash and whoever else was throwing the ball. Geno Smith, for whatever his faults, is a big upgrade. Who knows what Bowers could be? Just if we're talking just this year, especially, who knows what Bowers could be this year?
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
Well, that's going to wrap it up for tonight's episode. If you made it this far, we appreciate you joining us. Leave a like, subscribe if you enjoyed it. We're going to be dropping more content like this, and there's a bunch of other sports content on the Stadium Night channel. But yeah, thanks for joining us. Have a good rest of your night.
You're wrong, Dan.
With the first pick